2 want to send me a text. AlanCoxShow.com. Want to watch live there? Foregone the live stream for something different. You can watch the video segments there because of, who knows, because there's nobody here anymore and because of the... By the way, tell me again why the men's room is locked.
Because the building wants it locked.
Why?
I don't know.
There's no one here.
I don't know. The building feels a certain way about things, and then people keep putting tape over it.
Yes, because there's no... I go to the men's room in the break.
Yeah.
Forget that it's locked. Don't have my keys on me. Walk back to the office. Get my keys. Go back to the men's room. Put my key in the lock. The lock is spinning in the door.
Oh, you couldn't even get in?
I finally did. I had to like sit there like I'm playing Myst in the early 90s and click this goddamn thing. My key's in there. My key is turning with the lock. I'm like, what is going on?
You know what's
There's
going
no
on?
one here. There's no workmen on the other side. There's no contractors here today.
I don't know.
There's no one.
Here's what I think. I think that bathroom that Mary's been using is now a gender-neutral bathroom.
You can go in there.
Hey, listen, man, it's 2021. I'm with chins. Be like Ally McBeal up in this bitch.
It's not like there's urinals. There's 2 stalls.
Right.
So whether you have to pee or poop, it's not like I'm going to see a peen walking in. I'll
tell you
caught
what.
off guard.
I'll tell you what. I have no shame in sitting to pee.
Do it.
It is a delightful experience.
Just because it's a stall doesn't mean you have to sit.
But I prefer.
Oh.
Why would I stand in a
stand
stall?
up.
Yeah, you can stand.
Standing like a goon when I could be sitting?
Yeah, I associate stalls with sitting.
Sure.
Yeah.
Whatever you need.
Yeah. Cavaliers will play tonight. They are in Dallas, so 8:30 is the tip-off against the Mavericks. 8 o'clock is when your pregame coverage will begin here on MMS. I saw Corey Kluber's going to the Rays, by the way. Remember Corey Kluber?
Of course.
It's a big deal for the Indians.
Yeah,
for
he's
a while.
good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And then he went to the Yankees, I think, but kept getting hurt. Didn't he go to the Yankees?
Yeah,
he was out for a while.
I think we traded him to the Rangers, and then he went to the Yankees after that, and then now to the Rays.
There you go.
Rays are spending money, man.
Yeah, 1-year deal. He's free. He's not a young man anymore. He's 35, but he's still got some life in him.
It's so funny to be like, hey, he's not a young man anymore. He's 35.
Right.
Well,
but in baseball years, that's old.
Yeah, pro sports age is a lot different. We're also, I won't give you Terry the Goat's final tally until tomorrow because she picked Monday Night Football, which tonight is Washington-Seattle.
It's Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington.
Seattle's in Washington.
The Washington football team and the Seattle Seahawks of Seattle, right? The WFT OFSSS. That's Monday Night Football tonight. She only gave me 8 picks. Did not include the Browns game in her picks, but for Week 12, it could go either way. Out of 8 picks, what she's done so far, it could go either way.
That Cowboys-Raiders game on Thanksgiving Day was one of the best football games I've seen in a long time.
Oh, yeah?
That was such a good game because it went down to pretty much the last minute. It was, the Raiders were not favored to win, but they held them off and won. It was a very good game, and I think it's like one of the most viewed games since like 1990.
Really?
Like 38 million people watched that game.
Wow.
What did you do for Thanksgiving?
I went
Watch
to
football?
my ex-wife's house for a little bit and then just back home. Thanksgiving's real chill to me. Like I like that time.
It's supposed to be.
To not do a lot. Like I was supposed to go to my parents. I'm like, I don't want to drive all the way to Medina.
So far.
They're so annoying.
By the way, happy anniversary to your parents.
Oh yes, Saturday was their 4th anniversary.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
They're holding it together.
Bears beat the Lions on Thanksgiving. That's all I cared about. Barely beat the Lions.
Now that game was the exact opposite of entertaining.
That's right. The exact opposite. It's hard to get excited for Bears Lions, but what are you going to do? Yeah. So, but I've got to keep an eye on that game. Lions are my wife's team. The Bears are my team. Got to keep an eye on it. Of course, the Detroit Lions remain winless after 10 games.
Poor babies.
What are you going to do? What are you gonna listen? Those Pittsburgh Steelers, they got to get something going in there. They got to get. Bill hates those Steelers.
I do hate those Steelers,
but I lived there for many years, and so I have
stick with what they're doing right now.
They're doing great.
Do not get rid of Ben Roethlisberger.
Don't change
He's going to
anything.
bounce back.
They need
Just stick
somebody
with
in
him.
there. They got to put Aaron Rodgers in there. Aaron Rodgers is going to be a free agent, is he not? You get him in Pittsburgh, with the way he thinks about the vaccine, they will love him in Pittsburgh. You kidding me? Oh my God. You got to get somebody in there. Steeler fans, though, have been spoiled for a long, long time.
No.
That's why
Pittsburgh,
the whole Fire Tomlin hashtag, you're like, boy, they've been spoiled for a long time.
Yeah, your team's still 500.
Yeah.
And you're like, fire our coach. And we're like, we had one good... But then you have our fans that are like, oh, we got to get rid of... We got to start over. This isn't the team.
You don't have to start over, but
They want a new quarterback. They want a new coach.
They need a new quarterback. I think
we need a healthy quarterback is what we need.
Right. What I'm seeing from a lot of people is like he should have been benched weeks ago, Baker, because he's got all these injuries. And when we did have Kaysen, he had a great game. Like, you know?
Oh, yeah. He could do better than what Baker's doing right now because
He plays,
he's not...
yes.
He's a game manager. You rely on the run game. There's a lot of things that could be going better for the Browns right now. And then also the play calling that Kevin Stefanski did yesterday is just bananas.
You can't take it with you, lady on.
I love that clip.
Listen, if Kevin Stefanski, if the horny moms of Cleveland, Ohio have anything to say about the future of the Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski ain't going anywhere.
He's so cute.
Because he has drawn in a demographic long sought after by the National Football League, namely women and gay men who couldn't give a fat frog's ass about professional football.
They just want that cut to the sideline of him with his just lantern jaw trying to make a decision.
That's all they need. He's like a Foxy Leno.
Yeah.
That's all they need over there, right?
Foxy Leno.
You know,
You put him in a puffer coat and get a hat.
Why would I have him run the ball?
Yeah, what's the matter with play calling? Eh?
you guys would be proud of me because I'm growing up. I was eating dinner yesterday. I ordered Chinese, and I needed to find something to watch. And you know, my usual go-to is Surviving R. Kelly, but instead...
That's still your go-to? It's like a year old.
No, I don't...
How much more pleasure can you possibly derive from the defilement of these women?
But that was back in the day. I've moved on.
Back in what day?
He's trying to tell us that he's grown up.
You just said it's your usual go-to.
That was
what
my go-to
day
back-
are you talking about?
a year ago.
Back in the day.
He's grown up by ordering Chinese food, Alan. This is a grown-up
was
decision.
watching Chinese food, and I was like, I wanted to...
I was watching Chinese food. I was watching my front door to see when it was delivered.
And I was watching The Mind of Aaron Hernandez instead. So,
That's you growing up?
yeah.
But
'cause
you've
I
already
moved
seen
on.
that too.
I know, but I wanted to make sure it was something I enjoyed watching and, you know, just turn my brain off for a bit and just, like, gaze in the fact that I'm like, wow.
That's how you turn your brain off is by
Murder.
Not just murder, but like you're just fantasizing about being with the guy that murdered people.
No, not...
Ted Bundy's too twinky for you, or what?
No, Ted Bundy was hot, but I like Zac Efron playing Ted Bundy better.
All right, well, there you go.
But no, that was the other day. I was watching The Mind of Aaron Hernandez, and I just feel like he was a tortured soul, and he didn't have to go out the way he went out.
So not only just watching
Everybody's
it,
a tortured soul. Most people aren't killing other people.
That's what I'm saying.
Sympathizing.
If he wasn't tortured, he wouldn't have killed those people. He could have just let him be free. He wanted to be a cheerleader. If his dad just let him be a cheerleader like he wanted to be, none of this would have ever happened.
None of it would have happened. So it all goes back to his dad wouldn't let him be a
Dennis
cheerleader.
Hernandez.
Because he certainly seemed to have a relatively good career as a football player, didn't he?
Oh, he was great.
Yeah, he was a troubled off the field. Like, he was just troubled off the field. It wasn't
Well,
necessarily...
then what does that have to do with his dad not letting him be a cheerleader?
That's why he became a football player.
Was dad?
But then he had
That
success.
CT
It would be
and all
one
that.
thing if he sucked at football
Well,
and he's
'cause-
like, my dad made me...
Suppressed.
he was repressed about his sexuality, and so that was a
Repressed,
problem.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just because you're a cheerleader doesn't mean you're gay. Mary
Correct.
knows this.
Yeah.
A lot of straight... those male cheerleaders are getting laid.
It was the guys who didn't make the football team or couldn't get scholarships on football. So it was all like wrestlers and football players and basketball players that
And they
didn't
were
make the
buff
cut.
and beautiful.
Yes. Strong.
Some of the moves that they do are just incredible. I was watching just so much TikTok this weekend.
I love
and
cheerleading.
But like those moves where like it's all in one movement and they're like flipping the girl and then catching with one hand.
Yeah,
it's insane.
There's no.
They came to me when
people-
I was in college just because I was a wrestler.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, no, I'm not. Because I knew, I'm like, wrestling's one thing, okay? Like, cheerleading, I had enough moxie to figure out that will probably kick my ass.
Yes.
There's probably no way. Because I wasn't tall. I'm not tall.
You don't have to be tall.
It helps.
You just have to be strong.
Not really. You just,
Yeah, it does.
Not
It helps.
really. I'm
Being
telling
tall
you.
helps in most things.
I mean, sure, but it doesn't really matter in cheerleading. It's. I mean, depending on what you're doing, if it's like you just get a partner who's also short.
I guess there's short, strong cheerleaders.
Yes, it just depends on how well you can use your muscles. Doesn't matter how
Yeah.
tall you are. It's actually harder if you're tall. You got to throw them higher.
Yeah, but you
To
can
catch
do
'em.
it because you're strong.
Tall doesn't equal strong.
No, but you're strong if you're a cheerleader.
Yes.
There's no weak cheerleaders.
No.
Male cheerleaders. Plenty of weak female cheerleaders.
Hey,
But that's
Now,
because
why
of the
did you
gender.
assume I was talking about you?
because I'm a female.
Oh, I see. Alan Cox Show After Hours line. Anytime you want to leave a message there, you can. It's a 216-986-8903.
Hey, Alan. Just wanted to say thank you for reminding me of the song Hold the Line by Toto. You were talking about it last week, and I'm on the podcast. And fun little story about that. I was about 10 years old playing Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, and they used to have a radio station when you were driving in a car called K-Dust. And they always used to play like a revolving door of just like classic rock songs. And I had no idea that song was from 1978, but thanks for bringing that up and having me go through all my nostalgia of being a child. Hate the show. Love you guys. Bye.
Grand Theft Auto. Anybody remember Grand Theft Auto?
Of course.
Such
The
a
radio
good song.
station's K-Dust. Do you remember playing with K-Dust?
I remember that was one of the best things about Grand Theft Auto was going through the different
They used
radio
real music.
stations. They used real music, but then they had like different people. Like a lot of comedians did little clips on the radio stations where they'd like call in and like just kind of do the banter back and forth. It was very.
I didn't
funny.
play those games. I literally only paid attention to those games because the radio stations were so intricate and developed in this
Yeah.
game. Like the K-Dust was Axl Rose. He was the
Doc.
Tommy the Nightmare Smith. Yeah,
Yeah.
was Axl Rose. And Hold the Line was the only song in that game that he did an intro for. He they played like little sweepers and stuff. A buddy of mine did one of those voices for one of those radio stations. And I was like, oh God, I'd love to do that. I'd love to get one of those radio station voiceover gigs. I think this is what the Corey Roddick week we got going on. Hold the
Toto.
Line or something, yeah.
That
Because they're
tracks.
opening for Journey.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
God, that would
Billy
be a good
Idol and
show.
Toto are splitting the Journey dates.
Billy Idol from Wedding Singer.
Billy Idol from The Wedding Singer is doing some of the Journey dates. That's right. I think the Cleveland date gets
Toto.
Toto, yeah, which is fine with me. You know who still plays this song is the Ringo Starr All-Star Band. You know, where he goes out with like a revolving lineup of musicians, and sometimes Steve Lukather, who's the main dude behind Toto, will be in that lineup. So the Ringo Starr Band still plays Hold the Line. And I assume Toto also plays a song. Anybody watching the Beatles documentary, by the way?
No, my boyfriend and my mom talked about it on Thanksgiving for probably a half hour about how much they couldn't wait to watch it and how excited they were.
I didn't. Yeah, my older kids were in town over the weekend, and my daughter was like loving it. And I didn't pay that. I have to admit, I didn't pay that much attention to the Beatles growing up because my mom loved them. My mom played the Beatles all the time in our house. And so I kind of just as you're just kind of trying to some degree ignore what your parents are into. And so I heard all this music, but I'm much more interested in watching the creation of it now as a grown man. 20 years ago today, by the way, George Harrison died. A couple of people were texting me about that. He had cancer, I think.
Yeah.
And so George Harrison was he was the quiet Beatle because Paul was the cute one. He was the spaz. John Lennon was the controversial one, I guess. I don't know. Ringo was the clown. And George Harrison was the guy that was sitting there. You know, if you watch any of this Get Back, you see this is right before they broke up. So you see that like George Harrison is like, look, whatever you want me to play, I'll play it. Because Paul McCartney is clearly the boss of the band. Yoko and John Lennon are like heavily into heroin by the time this documentary gets, right? She's sitting there knitting. I'm like, you know, as much as that band hated each other at the end, I wouldn't want anyone there sitting there with two needles. But yeah, George Harrison.
Well, at least they were knitting needles and not heroin needles.
Yeah. So, you know, most people, Beatle maniacs, know most of those songs were Lennon-McCartney compositions, but George Harrison wrote amazing songs for the Beatles. He wrote Taxman. He wrote, what else? While My Guitar Gently Weeps. Everybody knows that. He wrote Here Comes the Sun. He wrote Something, which I didn't know. I didn't know George Harrison wrote that. He originally offered it to Joe Cocker because he was getting so many songs turned down by Lennon and McCartney. He was like, that's not his voice. I don't know. It isn't for me. That's not his voice. I don't know what George Harrison, he said a regular normal voice. So his playing was never all that flashy, but he had this just unbelievable sense of melody and all this kind of stuff. So, in the mid-'80s when he was doing the Traveling Wilburys, I kind of paid a little bit more attention to it. Yeah, he had lung cancer, I'm being told.
How much longer do you think Paul has?
I mean, by all accounts, he's in pretty good shape. I mean, George Harrison died of lung cancer. John Lennon died from lead poisoning.
So it's just Ringo and Paul.
Yeah, Ringo and Paul.
And Ringo's doesn't seem that old, right?
I mean, they're both in their 70s.
Yeah.
You'll enjoy this. Poundcake George Harrison left a $100 million estate. He famously married Eric Clapton's ex-wife, and they were friends.
That was that Layla song, right?
Layla!
That was about him?
It was about Patty Boyd, I think, yeah. What?
I feel like for the Beatles, that's kind of like light. Like Michael
Jackson. 20
Jackson.
years ago, though.
I understand, but Michael Jackson left each of his kids $100 million.
But Lennon and McCartney got the songwriting royalties. Okay. So that's why those guys. That's why Paul McCartney is like $800 million.
He's like the first billionaire first billionaire musician, like because he doesn't have like any endorsements or anything like that. He's just straight up.
I just couldn't believe it took two. The Beatles got into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in '88, and then George Harrison gets in as a solo artist in '04. I would have thought that the Beatles would have been in that inaugural class. 1986. So a whole slew of people went in before the Beatles went in. Because that inaugural year, Chuck Berry, James Brown, Ray Charles, you go, okay.
You got a lot of people
You got a lot of people to get to. Yeah. But Ricky Nelson goes in before the Beatles?
As he should.
Holy cow. I mean, Ricky Nelson.
Have you seen the Ricky Nelson documentary? Pretty good. It's pretty good. It's on Crackle.
The Beatles just
Crackle. Yeah, Mick Jagger inducted the Beatles in 1988.
The Beatles never tickled my fancy. I just didn't see maybe
Listen, believe it or not, there are a lot of people that weren't into the Beatles. I just kind of actively ignored them because my mom was so into them. But, I got over it and although she did bail when they got psychedelic. My mom liked old, early, nice, sweet Beatles. That's what my mom liked because my mom was nice and sweet. She had nothing to do, my parents are pretty square. She had nothing to do with Rocky Raccoon and, any of the happiness is a warm gun. She wanted nothing to do with any of that stuff.
When I was younger, I really liked the older Beatles stuff because it was just real melodic and real easy to sing along to. And then as I got older, I got way more into the later Beatles stuff, and that's kind of the cool thing about the career that they had is there's so much variety from start to finish, and you see the way the band evolved.
But that's what's so amazing about this documentary is you're sitting there watching it. My heart hurt for Ringo. I've never been in the Ringo is underrated camp. There are a lot of drummers who they will die trying to convince you that Ringo Starr is the greatest unappreciated drummer ever because he was in the Beatles. I feel like they're working backwards because he was in the Beatles.
Still, my favorite clip from the Beatles is when they go, "Is Ringo Starr the greatest drummer in the world?" And they go, "He's not even the greatest drummer in the Beatles."
Yeah. But again, God bless him, right? He was in the Beatles, for Christ's sake, and he did a lot of, they didn't kick him out. But when he's just sitting there, they're putting these songs together, and it's clearly a McCartney and Lennon production. That's no revelation. But just, like any drummer does, while the rest of the band's working it out, you're kind of sitting there pulling your pud. But just to watch these songs take shape, to watch Paul McCartney pull Get Back out of thin air, noodling around. I mean, for any artist to have a couple of songs that people know and like, it's almost whether you appreciate the Beatles or not, it's almost otherworldly the way these guys were just creating songs. And it's not, listen, your fans are only going to give you so much goodwill. These guys made a lot of records in a short period of time before they broke up. People forget how, really, big picture, how short the Beatles were together. And all of the music that they created in that amount of time.
What was it, 10, 12 years?
10, maybe?
10 years, that's it?
maybe 10 years.
When you have that kind of a rapport, like the four of them, when you say like how quickly they could pump it out, if they are trusting each other and they know that like even just riff sessions, we're probably going to come out with something. We're all talented. We know how to play off of each other, you know?
But like, when you get to the point of this documentary where they like pretty much hate each other's guts, you know, and Harrison leaves, but then he's like, all right, I'll come back, but you got to bring Billy Preston back. Because George Harrison had come to the United States in that interim. He had been jamming in L.A. with like Dylan and all these other people. He's like, this is great. I forgot, you know, because the Beatles were kind of like, we don't like that so much. You know, he really was starting to feel left out of the Beatles. So I'm not even all the way through the documentary, but I'm enjoying it much more than I thought I would. I thought I'd be like, it's all right, but man, it's fascinating.
This is video from the 70s.
69, I think. Yeah, with them trying
to... Where'd they find it?
Huh?
Where has this video been?
They had filmed it for a while, but I guess Peter Jackson put it together. And I guess Disney Plus wanted him to cut a lot out of it so that it'd be PG, and he was like, nope. They wanted him to cut all the profanity.
Screw that.
Oh, they left it all in?
They left it all in.
That's crazy.
It's on
for
Disney Plus?
Yeah.
Disney Plus, yeah. 2 hours over 3 nights that they dropped over Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's pretty good.
To check it out.
I got a break here. If you want to get a text for anything, 35192 to do that. AlanCoxShow.com. Listen anywhere on the iHeartRadio app.
The Alan Cox Show on 100.7
WMMS.